so much for joining us today. And it is my pleasure to introduce Lee Preston. I think he is very familiar to many of you. It's great to see a packed audience. He is a friend of the Historical Society, a researcher, an author, and a fellow archaeologist as well. So there's probably no part of the county and beyond that Lee has not researched or done. And so we're going to hear about the Simpsonville Woolen factory and grist mill today. So help me to welcome Lee Preston back to Howard County. If you want to try it.
I have some a slide about some other talks that I'm getting in case you're interested this fall and also this winter through the Howard County Park and Rec's 50 years plus program. You can go online. I don't charge anything, but they charge $9 for registration and those talks. And I'm sorry, it's going to be a difficult day for seeing what I brought for you today. And I would never beseech the sun for being out. But obviously, for not being able to control it in the ear, that's another issue. So I'll do the best I can with what we got here. But today, the grist mill and woolen factories in Simpsonville. Try to even get that focused a little more. Yeah, 3 centuries. That's what I used to see when I was driving by on the way to Clarksville from Athens to the high school. I was supposed to be here on 3rd of October. The first slide in my book is Stop What You Find, It's What You Find Out. So today I'm providing you with some information that I found out. Whether you can see it, I'm not sure. It's fine. Okay, good. All right. I have to give thanks to John McRain, who wrote the monography of Maryland mills. He passed away a couple of years ago, but he also provided me with some information about the Simpsonville mill. And he said in his monography under Simpsonville, it said also C. Owings and C. Warfield mill. So I knew from the get-go there was more to it than just Simpson's. And he also sent me some pictures of the mill that he had, some black and whites, and also the mill dam. The 1860 Martin F. map obviously had Simpsonville on it, that nice little village. And in 1852, Charles R. Simpson purchased a 215-acre parcel that contained the grist mill, woolen factory, and the sawmill. And he purchased it from Henry H. Owings. And on that map, it had the woolen factory listed. And of course, Simpson became the postmaster in 1850. That's 2 years before he bought the property. So he was working there as postmaster in 1850. And here's listed in the from the United States Postal Service records, has him listed in Simpsonville in 1850. He passed away in 1854. So since then, after he passed away, there were a number of other postmasters, some that were descendants of his. I'll talk more about them later. That'd be good for the 1850s up until the 20th century. Simpsonville Post Office is still active today. There it is, Simpsonville, 20158. Happens to be in the Appleton shopping center. And we could have, I was doing the archaeology over at the Simpsonville mill back in the 80s. We put up in the newspaper asking for people that had any knowledge of the Simpsonville mill. And Helen Smith gave me a call and said, yeah, my father was a miller and the postmaster. And his name was John Lindley. My mother's name was Mary Ivelhart. And they also had a grist mill and a store. And of course, I didn't know anything about the stores. We were very happy to hear. And she said, and I have ledgers that my father had of people who bought stuff at the store. Another great comment that she made that this made me happy. So it's really happy to meet her. And she brought a couple of those ledgers. And of course, we could see here in this, and I have to make it a little bigger, I guess, for you to see John L. Eibelhart, May of 1914. And boy, that's there. And also in the ledger that she sent me or showed me, there's really good information in there. I'm sorry to say that you can't read much of it, of what was the balance that was brought forward. This was his cousin, Milton Eibelhart, and he purchased a dress that was for $2.75, a spool of silk for 10 cents, a broom for 65 cents, and 6,000 shingles for $39. I guess he was doing something to the roof of his house, or maybe a couple of houses. That's a picture of John Lindley and his lovely wife, Mary, Helen's mother. And this is a picture of her, Helen's on the left, sitting on the lawn in front of their house, the miller's house, across from the mill in Simpsonville. Of course, my brother had the Eibelhart mill, and that was the house when I first started doing archaeology there. That's presently on Harriet Tubman Lane, used to be on Route 32. That's what it looks like today. If any of you was, last time I gave a talk over that area, it was for sale, that house, but it changed to a blue color, if you can see. In the 1920 census, I was able to find a listing for, obviously, John Eibelhart. Was a head of family, and listed under him Mary, his wife, and Helen, who was listed as 9 months or 9/10, and 9/12. So she was 9 months old, and her brother, you're going to talk about in a minute, Walter, and other siblings, and a person who was working at the store, the flour, and next to the flour mill, and there was a clerk listed as well, and a number of other people that were living at the house. That map was given to me by Helen's brother. It came out from Arizona, actually, we had a grand, well, not a grand opening, but a lecture about what we learned about Simpsonville. And he provided a nice map that had on it well, I can make this a little larger, I hope. Oof, do any better? Well, maybe not. Is that better? Yeah. No, the other back. Hey, all right. Let's hope. Right. So he said he said where their house was, which was there, where the mill was, and where the store was adjacent to the mill. Okay, and he drew a picture of the mill race, the river, and yada yada, which was pretty accurate. And here's a picture of that Helen showed me of Uncle John with his hands on her shoulders, and the other brothers from the right, Lewis, Walter, and somebody they're not sure who that is. But anyway, I also met Richard Myers, or Dick Myers, who was a resident up the hill, well, what's now Harriet Tubman Lane, what used to be Route 32. And he said he used to hang out on the porch. He would smoke his pipe with others and have conversation on the porch of the store. And he explained to one of my students, who's an art student, who actually drew a picture of what he said the store looked like. So that's what you see there, along with some artifacts in front of it that people are in that area around the store, including, as you can see, the ceramics, marbles, pipe stems, bowls, and gun flints. And there's a gun flint shown there a gun flint that would be shown here, where they would create a spark that would ignite the gunpowder to fire a bullet. So that's what a gun flint was used for. So we found a number of them at the site. Over 100,000 artifacts, by the way, they found there over 4 different archaeological excavations there over it's a 15-year period. Is probably the most excavated 18th and 19th century industrial site in Maryland. And that's some of the pipe stems that would have been broken off as a pipe. If it got a little bitter, they would break it off and throw the pipe stems away. And there's a pipe bowl, also a ceramic marble, and part of a pipe stem, and that they connected to the bowl. So we found a lot of artifacts, and thousands of them are wish they were on display, but they're being housed in the Jefferson Patterson Park in Annapolis. In Southern Maryland. Also met Tom Peters, who in 1943 or 44, he was in World War II in Europe, and he got a letter from his mother that said, "The mill's on fire, and the fire, it spread to our field, our coal birds from our gourd now." He also said that he had heard that there was a fire there in 1802. I did verify that when the Mitchells or the mill. But anyway, he when he came back from the war, he said he used to take apples down to the mill. They had a cider press there, and so they created obviously cider, as well as being a grist mill when the Iglehorts were there. And I call this the roaring 20s. Helen said that during the 20s, times were a little tight. This was right before the Depression. And people would rob the store sometimes, and they used to sleep in the store at night to forestall the robberies. And because of the robberies, the post office decided to move the Simpsonville post office to the gentleman there, the Mr. Stromberg, the Stromberg store. I don't know if you had any of you heard of the Stromberg store at the corner of Route 32 and 29. And they moved it there in 1915, as you can see. And his name is listed in that document in the United States Postal Service, Anthony Stromberg. So there's Simpsonville. And if we go down the old 32, and across right there on the corner, later became the Hakel store. But it was the Stromberg store and post office. And that's probably a reason why about 100 yards away, present day, it's after the chugs there. So it's a little safer there back in the day. And of course, they're probably going on that's the Simpsonville mill today. It's a stay a real. It's the post office will stay near it is, I assume. But it's called Simpsonville, not Atherton. So anyway, back to the Simpsonville map. We've talked enough about the 20th century. I should get back to the 19th to the 18th century. See what was going on there. If any of you seen is the land map on display here anywhere? I'm not sure if it is or not, but anyway, that's the Howard County land patent map. A little closer, and I guess I got to get a little closer. The middle Patuxent River that runs right through the Reagan, the Cowell property, and then through where the Simpsonville mill would go, and on out to towards Laurel. But that's the mill. There's a largest version of the map. What was interesting is when I went to the Hall of Records and the map was, or I went there because there were all kinds of names for the property around in Avril and Richmond's Lot, the Discovery, Geist Plains, but nothing in here where we were looking to find more sensitive. So the Hall of Records did provide some information, but actually before I found any maps, I found this 1768 will for Joshua Warfield, a practitioner of physics doctor. And in it, he gave to his wife the property, the land on the land that also had the mill, as long as she kept it in proper order. That was kind of interesting. Um, and then he bequeathed to his son Joseph the dwelling, plantation, and lands on the western side. So she got the eastern side, he got the western side, and that was in 1768 will. That's the first time I saw an earlier reference to an actual mill being in what we call Simpsonville. Uh, this is the land pat that he had. Joshua Warfield, you'd see a pop. He actually, he actually put together two earlier deeds that were made, one in 1725 by John Martin, and another one in 1740 by a John Hobbs. He put those two together, and he called it Luck Supported. And he added property, and this is the detail. I'm sorry, I can't read that for sure, but that's the first page of the document that showed Luck Supported, and it was 639 acres. And that's a map of the whole area of the 639 acres. He took the original 240 and added almost 300 acres in the area. And called it Luxem. And if we take this portion, the first portion that was back in 1725, actually 200 acre parcel, we could see in it that basically it was also in the Baltimore County land records, even though that's definitely in Howard, or it's Howard County today, or was Anne Arundel. They made the correction later, but it was originally listed in Baltimore County. And you can see these are the 6 courses or 8 courses that are right along the river. And I was able to compare that with we spin it around and take the present day of the map that I showed you earlier, the land patent map where the mill is, and put them side by side. You can see that the courses on the river are the same. And just a little bit about a mill and the mill race. That's the mill there. You have to take the water from the river, and by building a dam, you can back that water up and create with a race gate when you want the water to flow to the mill. And the longer that is, and the more of a drop it is, how's the wheels that turn the grist and stones inside the mill. So that's and we take this picture of now that this is not the Simpsonville mill, but I met a miller in Virginia that still has a working mill, and the water would be brought in to turn a wheel, and then on the inside, that wheel would convert the horizontal energy to vertical energy, which then would power the stones. Those are 2,000 to 3,000 pound stones. One moves and one's stationary. That then together, when you put in the curves of meat, they're then the distance between them. You don't want to crush the stone. You want to shear the kernels, and that distance is very critical for a miller to be able to figure out how close that rhinestone is to the base stone, and then the flour comes out the base. So it looks fairly obviously with 6,000 pounds of weight, you have to be careful around it, but it's not too difficult of a process once everything's working properly. Now in 1785, Joseph did actually get the mill. He was working it, and Rachel, his mom, they sold it to Joseph Howard and William Selman. They sold a tract, what they called the mill seat, part of partnership. And the mill seat, as I said, They called it partnership, and in the document it says, and I'm sorry you can't see it, part of a tract of land called Luck Supported, um, and a mill seat commonly called partnership. And that's what the area that looked like that's where the mill would be, and that's the actual 50 acres that became the mill seat. And in 1791, William Selden did a smaller version of it, the mill seat, 21 acres. He owned it. I'm not exactly sure what he was doing there, but it was part of, it was the original mill right where Luxembourg had started. So anyway, that was 1791, but here's a 1795 Griffith map. And you'll see on that map the name Owings on the middle river of the Patuxent, and also an Owings on the Mill River of the Patuxent. So he had mills in both areas. That is the reason for that. He happened to marry the daughter of Dr. Warfield, Dr. Joshua Warfield's daughter. He married Ruth in 1774. He was basically in Baltimore County. I'm sure you've heard of Owings Mills Residue. Well, the Owings had mills then and warehouses in Baltimore. They were shipping their wheat abroad. But he moved to Anne Arundel County and opened the mill, took over from some somewhere prior to 1795. And oh gosh, I'm sorry. I just discovered this about 5 months ago. So I've been adding to some of these records had not been available until recently. And I found the 1798 federal tax census, or federal tax, direct tax that people had to pay taxes on. And of course, Owings is listed here, and I'm going to blow through it now because you won't be able to see it till here. When Luck Supported, he had 690 acres in what was called the Patuxent Hundred. So I found that, the direct tax. And also he owned, along with an Isaac Paul, that mill that I showed you on the Little Patuxent River. And that was on Wincobe and Neck. That would be on the Little Patuxent. And it was called Huntington Hundred. Now he paid 150, he paid for 131 acres and 120 purchase. The purchase 16.5 feet of, and he paid $395 for that, and 25 for the purchase, which is a lot different than what he owned in Simpson, but what we call Simpsonville. His 690 acres, he was paying $2,277 for that property. So he owned the mill, what we call Simpson Mill, and the one down in Wincobe and Net there.
Was that kex annual kex or just a one-time kex? Was that a one-time kex or annual or what?
Oh, that was that's interesting. I assume they had to pay tax each year, but that's the first record that they had online you could actually copy and look at. So I'm not sure. I'd have to go and see if there was one for 99 and 100 and all. I'm sure there was a tax, but whether maybe they only printed it, I'm not sure why 1798. Usually they're in 1800, 1810, but with the census data anyway. But anyway, there's the two mills, what we call Simpsonville and the other one at Real Patuxent. I don't know if you've heard of the term rule of fall. Then that's a term that associated with the miller who, when he takes or bends down and grabs the flour between his thumb and finger, he can identify the thickness of it and the granular, especially if they're doing superfine flour. They want it to be really thin. Superfine flour is used for cookies and cakes, pastries. Not bread. That would be the fine flour or even a little thicker. Can you hear me? Okay. I switched hands because I was losing. Man, I'm not playing golf today, so I think I can take that off. Anyway, so I assumed, and you could tell these are different types of flour from the cornmeal, wheat to wheat meal, and buckwheat to buckwheat meal or flour. The process, and at the end of it, you have different consistencies, different thickness, and also how much you mill it. Were to create, if you're trying to create super fine or fine flour. And I assume Owix was more known as a miller, a gristler, than uh, than a woolen fabricator, because he had three. These are three indentures that he had of young boys for up to 5 years. One was, whoops, I'm sorry. One was in 1796, 1798, and in 1809 to learn the art of millering. Then their fathers, and one of them happened to be a weaver, which becomes important related to the woolen factory. At least the father was a weaver. The son was being trained to learn about a grist mill. And this is the actual document here between him and the son of Nathan Waters, George, between 1809 and 1815, to learn the trade or mystery of millering business. And interestingly enough, he shall not waste the goods of his said master, nor lend them unlawfully to any at cards, dice, or any other offended aid of chance. He shall not play fornication. He used to play that. She shall not commit matrimony during the said term. We want his attention here. We want it to learn as much as possible. So a pretty detailed list of what he can and couldn't do as he was servicing the master. And of course, the master was going to provide him with food and place to live. And Richard Owings, on his part, as said, will teach and instruct the said apprentice in the mysteries of the trade of millery. And the last page here, at the end of his contract, he would get sufficient meat, drink, and clothing, on lodging, and whatever necessities that they agreed upon. So that was his contract. I have the other contracts, but we already have an hour today. So, and again, learning the details of how to be a great miller is obviously the need to understand the relationship between the better stone and the one that's moving on top that spins, and the distance they are apart. And they also need to dress the stones. They would actually cut them. They would have stone basins. Now, whether Richard Owings did that as well, I'm not sure, but they would cut the edges so when it did it would shear the curls rather than crush them. And they wanted it to be sharp stone. And like I said, so that it came in the top. And shear, not crush, you have to be very careful of the distance between those two stones, the better and the runner on top. And this is a more of a detail that you probably won't be able to, well, you might see more than I thought. Now, this is an overshot wheel. The one at the Simpsonville wasn't an overshot, but basically the wheel here is turning the vertical shaft on the inside that's then going to turn the 3,000-pound set of stones that are going to be shearing the core or the wheat. And then, like the hopper on top, there was a whole process involved in it. And the millwright was the person that was generally the person who would choose where to put a mill. So they would deal, especially like Howard County or Anne Arundel at the time, this Howard district had a lot of nice contours because of the the upland area. So it was a good spot to have mills. And this particular one, the distance between where the water would come in, where the water would come in at the race gate, the distance from here up to the mill, and I've walked, it's about 1,300 feet. And the drop from here to the end, where it's called the head or the drop, was about 13 feet. And that would mean that what type of wheel that you're going to use. The one I showed you before, the overshot, is the most efficient, but it's generally got to be in an area where you have a very large wheel and a lot of more power than they would have at the Simpsonville, or what we're going to call the Owings mill. That's still 60% efficiency, and it's called a breast, or right in the middle. They return it, and that's the kind of build they had. There's the race at the Simpsonville mill. So there's the mighty middle Patuxent, and as I said, the channel. Oh, I said 1,300, 1132 to 1148. Sorry. See, back in the 30s when I was sitting with, because somebody who said he's heard me before back in the 1930s. Yeah, I think in the 30s it was 1,300. But anyway, that's where the race gate would be, and there was the drop off by the time it got to the wheel. It's turning, what's going on the inside. Just to compare that, as the breast wheel with Savage. Savage had a 60-foot head, so a 60-foot drop versus 13. So he was definitely involved in the market expansion back in that particular area from 96 to 1804. Remember, he's took over the mill before 1795, and by 96, 98, he's pretty wealthy, and is involved in setting up all kinds of networks, especially with the Elegance building some Great Brood network, and his brother and siblings in working in Baltimore County, and he would be entered in Howard County or Anne Arundel. And they also had a Owings warehouse in Baltimore. So the Middle Patuxent was involved in the shipping of, and I don't know if you call Head Truly a merchant mill, like some of the ones that were producing thousands of bushels a day, but he definitely, and I'll explain in a minute why he would have been involved in some of the merchant milling. But that's in Baltimore between 1815 and 1827. Baltimore was rising above Massachusetts and Pennsylvania to be the number one exporter of flour by the time it get to 1820. Between 1815 and 1827, those are the reasons, the pluses. And of course, there was a blockade with the Britain before the war, 1812. Britain and France, and from time to time, would blockades of our shipping trading. So there was a reason that Baltimore, with their fast scooters, could outrun the blockades better than some others. So there was a plus for Baltimore. And as I said, there's the Owings. You can see the Owings mill. Where did I put it? There it is. And I'm going to show you the road from Owings. There you go. The road from Owings Mill, and there was a road on this map, could go to Elkridge and ship from there, and or straight on into Baltimore, because the Elegates had produced a pretty nice road network. So they had access to selling abroad, and I also call Richard Owings an entrepreneur, especially because he bought that one 43-acre parcel for £150, and 16 years later he sold for £10,000. So he's definitely making money and involved in the manufacturing that the United States has started after the revolution. In fact, I got thinking about a nice call for next year, for the 250th anniversary about the colonial iron industry in Howard County and how some of the individuals were creating munitions for the war effort against Britain. So that's going to be exciting to do. But anyway, he put together what called in 1809 Four Brothers Portion, where they had four sons that were getting money and a 1,210-acre parcel. But what's cool here is this is what the parcel looks like. This particular, I plotted them all and pasted them together, and it fits very nicely in the area. And I found at the Howard County Historical Society up in the library a map that was made back in the early 1800s. They had it in one of the drawers here. And interestingly enough, it shows Richard Owings' part of the discovery. And in order to make it a little more clearer, we have to turn it around. But that's the Richard Owings part of the discovery. And we take a look at that land patent map. Here's the discovery. And we turn the other map around. Here's that same parcel. There's the discovery. And there's the discovery here. And there's Richard Owings' part right here. And Richard Owings' part is going to be including that part of the Middle Patuxent River. And that fits nicely into the area. Sorry for my penmanship. I was much better in the 1930s, but anyway, and that's listed. Actually, it was not approved in 1809, but it was in 1812. The Four Brothers portion, that particular parcel of land. And so I haven't talked much about Woolen, have I? I've talked about Grist. Yeah. Only one guy's got things to do. Won't talk. Editorial.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is that built with field to stone?
That's a good question. I know it was a stone structure. And I saw a lot of it was there was some granite, and I'm not sure if it was all granite, but it was definitely stone. And of course, I'm going to talk about that oil painting that was done. That's an oil painting done by an artist who had to be living with the Ivanhoes for a while. I'll tell you about that later. But this is we know that in 1842, this is a letter that was written from the Owingsville Woolen factory in 1842. And his name was James Mitchell, and he was a cotton spearer. So we know that there was one there in 1842. And this is the part that's going to be tough to see, I think. Richard Owings, in his 1818 last will and testament, he died in 1819. In his last will and testament, he stated, and I think I even have to go behind and put my glasses on, read this. Usually I read it for the screen, because the bottle of the screen is much bigger, right? But it says up top, I give and bequeath to my wife, Ruth Owens, all of my lands on the east side of the main road leading to Elkridge Landing. Beginning, and there's, you can see the road that's going to Elkridge Landing. So she's getting everything on the east side. All right. On the east side. And also, he's given her 10 ton of hay, 50 barrels of corn, and 6 barrels of superfine flour. Half of the toll taken in the country mill, that would be the smaller mill, He's going to get half of the toll taken down on the little Patuxent. Okay, so $500 in cash. He also, of course, they were slave owners back in the day. He also gave her eight slaves, specifically listing names. And also my 12 of my best sheet, all of the linen cloth, thread, yarn, wool, and flax, just in case you didn't think he had a wool factory. And he did have 40 sheep, 48 sheep, and 20 lambs in this document. So he had plenty of sheep to provide the raw material for a woolen factory. He also had 108 barrels of superfine flour in his inventory, 40 half barrels of superfine. And you can see his inventory was worth $11,000 at the time, which would be about 2.1 million Prezi. So he was pretty wealthy. And in the he also said, "I give and bequeath unto my two sons, Basil and Henry H. Owings, my mills." Now that's the plural. And all the lands associated with them, including the land he got from a John Worthington, which has yet to be deeded to me. So interestingly enough, the young sons are getting the mills. He's 21, he was 19 at the time, and he expected James, who had already been worked in the mills in the Baltimore County, to kind of teach them the ropes, how to run the mill. And interestingly enough, in the archaeology that was done at the site, lo and behold, we found 2 millstones, not over here where we associate the mill, but in this area here. And these millstones were burr stones, French burr stones. And then they would import the French burr stones because they were made of quartz and very sharp. They imported them from France and they put them together into each of the header and the runner, or the runner and the better stone. So they were supposedly the best quality, the French burrs. That would be used to do superfine or fine flour. And a lot of that was sold abroad. And as I said, pastry and cookies, the superfine flour is good for that. You needed that.
Remember again, what was the weight of one of those?
Pardon?
What was the weight?
Of these, about 2,000 to 3,000 pounds. And they were strapped together. And I'm glad I did. I actually have a clip of what a mill sounds like. It sounds pretty decent. It's not that bad, but I'm afraid to show it today. But anyway, they would be dressed, sharpened from time to time, and of course then refurbished. And they had furrows, the strips in the middle. That's where the flour would come out. So they definitely created a sharper edge. And interestingly enough, in the archaeology, that was found in the Biltner's trench of the mill, and that happened to be, once it was cleaned up, a 1797 penny. 1797. Now, what's interesting, in the present day, people take a quarter, a dollar, they throw it in, whether they're doing a new patio or something, a new building, new addition. Whether that was done on purpose, don't know. But do you know it was found there in 1797? And the dude from the fact that would have been a perfect time for him to make the switch from what used to be a grist mill, move the grist mill over, and had the woolen factory in the 2-story building and the grist mill over here. And that the mill race would bring water in for one. And of course, if you were running, you could run both at the same time if you wanted, to run the the Woolen factory. In the 1798 direct tax, it might not be too hard to see. This is Richard Ellings had a dwelling house in Luxembourg, and so there's the 30 by 22 wood house, and then a 2-story stone 52 by 45. That fits into the parameters of the present building, 52, 45 feet. Also another one, and another, smaller buildings that would be perfect for storage, etc. In Luxembourg. And he also had individuals living in houses on the property he owned. This is the owner that were probably working, and I haven't been able to find them in earlier censuses, exactly what they were doing. But they were living there and probably working the property, either the grist or the Woolen factory, because there was 1-story buildings plus outbuildings. We call them outhouses. Any outbuilding would be an outhouse, including what we might refer to present day as an outhouse. And this was the Ellings and Paul mill. Paul passed away. Ellings took that over, the smaller mill down on the Little Patuxent. But that was interesting there, especially because you can see it's a 3-story stone, 36 by 36. And the best grist mill, once we get to more mechanized grist milling, is a 3-story structure. You could do it in 2, but 3-story works real well. And he definitely had that, and plus other story, 2 3-story buildings on the property of the Little Patuxent. And actually, you can see this is I printed out or typed up the statement of 1813 when he purchased from Oliver Evans the patent to build and make use of his patented machines for elevating and conveying flour, and had 2 pair of millstones on the Little Patuxent River. And this is a picture of the, and what did I forget his name? Of Oliver Evans, 1931. Today it's catching up with. So that's Oliver Evans. He's the one that created a system that one person, would be needed at the mill. Whereas before that, you would need 6 to 8 individuals, cart everything around, move it up, move it down. One person could run the whole operation because it was all mechanized. And like I said, but then the Elegants, have to give a shout out to them. They were the first to actually purchase his patent in 1700, the Elegant brothers. So anyway, big differences between a textile mill where you're spinning wool, making material that's then converted into whatever clothing, and the grist mill on this side. So there were 2 operations going on there, and in the 1798 federal tax again, they also had, this is part of the slave records, they had 15 slaves. 8 were exempt because they were disabled, and 7 were taxed. So slavery is definitely big in Anne Arundel County. And these are the numbers. In 1810, there were just about as many slaves as there were white inhabitants. So they were big into the slave trade, the slave industry, including Richard Ellings and a number of other people, the slaves that they owned in this area.
You
Yes.
go to buy these.
What?
Where would they go to make their sway or bus?
I know that there were there were definitely sales in Annapolis. I'm not sure. I assume Baltimore as well. Yeah. And I have some, in other talks I give, probably got some of the advertisements for when there was going to be an auction, so to speak. So anyway, so there's definitely slavery to area, obviously in the farming And then also later in industrial slavery. I talk a lot about that in the colonial iron industry. And these are the slaves that Richard Owings, the 25 that he valued at 60 or over $6,000 in his inventory after he died. So he definitely had a lot of slaves. This is the Owings graveyard, which is across the street, across Cedar Lake, on a private property present day. Can you read that? Yeah. In memoriam, Richard Owings, who departed this life in 1819 in the 70th year of his age. That took me a while to read that. I have a picture of that from 15 years ago, 20 years ago. Present day, it's very difficult to read because it's weathered even more. But that's his gravestone. And they didn't take as much care as they should have of that particular graveyard. The one out for the Warfields out of Longwood was definitely cared for by the present day owners. But not all of them were. And probably some years heard about what the Cemetery Preservation Board tried to identify cemeteries to protect them in some way. But anyway, that's what it looked like when I went there. The owners were throwing their grass clippings in the graveyard. So I had to remove it to actually look at the headstones. Again, in the will, he instructed his son James to work his mills and share the profits with Basil and Henry. And he also sold him his warehouse in Baltimore. And so again, they were both tenants in common. And this is an 1829 document that the brothers, after he had died, of all this 10 years later, they're going probate, all that kind of stuff, trying to work out who's going to get what. And in this particular document, the property that Worthington gave was sold to Henry H. I'm sorry, to Richard Owings, was identified in this document. And you can see that Basil and Henry H., they got part of the tract called Four Brothers Portia. Now, they basically divided that original 1,200-acre parcel, made it a lot smaller. It was only 215 acres, so they took the original 1,200 acres down to 15. The other acreage were divided amongst some of the other sons, Samuel Owings, Richard Owings, Joshua Owings. Got some property contiguous to this area, and some got property in Baltimore County. But the Basil and that Samuel Owings, he also got property contiguous. And this is and again, it's not going to be too easy to see, but I'm showing this because this particular deed stated that one of the courses was at the beginning of Athol and Richmond's lot. Have you heard of Athol? Atherton. Athol. Okay. And a builder mining on hunting ground, which you've seen at other maps. There's hunting ground. There's the beginning of Athol and Richard's lot, and there's the course. So now he's adding to what he already had. They had this portion coming up, and I assume you know about Clemens Crossing Elementary School. In the woods behind Clemens Crossing Elementary School is this marker. It says, can you see it? Athol.
Oh, yeah.
Athol, you can see this one better. Begins here. Right. And the date on the side, 1730. That was still in the ground 25 years ago, and I took the last picture up. So I assume it's still there if you walk on the walking band, but behind Clemens Crossing. So that area, the Owings owned as part of that land grant. Now, and in 1829, Henry H. said to Basil, "You take the mill. You run the mill and the woolen factory and the grist mill." And it stated here the mills, mill seat, the grist mill, the sawmill, and the woolen factory. That was in this 1829 document. And you can see Basil Owings, postmaster in 1841. And there he is, 1841. Basil Owings was the postmaster, but discontinued in 1850. 1850, Charles R. Simpson became the postmaster. Basil didn't do too well with running the grist mill and property. And basically in 1850, he had moved out to the Howard district out by Lisbon, and was a merchant, listed as a merchant there. His brother, Henry H., kind of bailed him out, bought the property, ran him for a while. And in the 1850, this is the products of the industry census. You can see Henry H. Owings is listed twice, owning a grist mill and a sawmill. And corn and buckwheat. There's the corn and buckwheat. One pair of burr stones. So they still had the burr stones. So they still could do superfine flour, whether they were going for merchant milling or for local, or people that would buy locally as well. And Charles L. Simpson was listed in the same products of industry. I think they had an agreement. Try it out. You want to run the woolen factory, and you can do some grist milling, and if you like it, you'll buy the place. You'll buy the property. And he did in 1852. They were producing, you can see 8,000 bushels. 6 employees, 6 spindles, 4 looms, and 2 carders. I'll get to that in a second. And listed over here, they were producing linsey cloth, which is a mixture of linen and wool. All right. And when I talk about machinery, they had carders and looms. Now, I don't think at that time, I think they had machines rather than handheld carders that you could do in the privacy of your own home or in a smaller version of a woolen factory. But they had spines, metal spines, and you just be able to separate the fibers in the individual strands. That's what a carder did. So a machine would do it faster. And we also, a descendant, Cecil Simpson, showed me a woolen light that it was made at the mill, that it was passed down in the family. I met him, that was back in the 80s. Ooh! That was after 1931. Anyway, and Charles Simpson also ran a grist mill. I think it was Sherry that established it. He didn't have separate milling stands for on his own. And neither of them were producing a heck of a lot, but enough to say, hey, I like it. And he bought the property. But he had the grist mill and the corn, one person. And looks like they were using that invention of Evans. And they also had the burr stands were still there. That's the ones that the archaeologists found in the 20th century. So again, you put these two together, 2,500 bushels of grist compared to the Dallas Tyson merchant mill, 100,000 bushels of wheat and 100,000 bushels of ore. But they still made enough to make money, for sure, yes.
Would they make their own bushel containers, or is there an industry where they buy them from?
Well, people would bring it, they would come in barrels, dump in, and then the barrels would be used dumping out, in and out. Although I'm sure you always had barrel makers and blacksmiths in the areas to help out.
Well, when did the bushel basket come along?
The bushel basket. Oh, no. You're back in 1930. Well, I don't know. Anybody know? Bushel basket. I never seen it when I was a wood kid. My parents would go get apples. But anyway, so his was the only woolen factory. Most of the others were cotton duck or sailcloth. So that was a plus for Simpson. But again, he passed away. And in the 1850 census, Henry H. Owings was listed as a farmer. And Charles R. Simpson, you can see, listed as a as a woolen manufacturer. All right. Along with some other individuals in the household. And in that same census, there's a number of individuals, weavers, weaver and spare weaver living in the area, if not in Simpson's house. So you're definitely involved in the woolen industry. So Henry H. sold the Four Brothers portion that was now 215 acres and mill seat. And I actually plotted that, and you can't see it, but you'll see the next one a little better. There's a 1964 tax map. I always like to get the tax map and see if old maps fit into them. And you can see perfect virtually. This is the Four Brothers portion. That's Cedar Lane, or right off Cedar Lake. There's Freetown Road. And here's present-day Harriet Tubman Lane. It used to be the old Route 32. So Simpson at 52. That's 52. Now, this is a 1860 map. You'll notice now Owings still has a big house in the area that overlooked the mill. That was torn down when the new Route 32 was built. So that's no longer there. But he moved from Simpsonville all the way over to a property off of Route 108. And you'll see Henry H. Owings. H. Owings is listed there. So he wasn't too far away, but he got out of the grist building. This is just a farmer probably providing some of that grist to go into the mill. Still a wealthy man. As you'll see from this, there's Henry H. Owings listed as a farmer at $60,000 in real estate, $25,000 in personal wealth in Ellicott City, or Ellicott Mills, I should say. And then the actual name of the person that owned the Woolen factory was a William Brayshaw. He had taken over. And there's a Clarksville census. There's a William Brayshaw listed as a manufacturer with a number of people. Also about the manufacturing in the area. So he was running the mill, the Woolen factory at that time. And that's, he was originally from England, worked at Ballville for a long, came out to the Howard District of Anne Arundel County. I met a descendant, great-grandson of Brayshaw. He was living at the Lorraine and Nursing, and even though Mr. Welling had a stroke, he still was quite intellectually aware of what was going on and doing a lot of research on his own, and shared it with me, and mentioned that his father, or his great-grandfather, purchased the property for $13,000 in 1865. When he passed away, they listed the 3-story woolen factory in Gristmill and Sawmill along with a lot of dwellings, and that was listed in the newspaper, where it stated the 3-story woolen factory. So it was converted to 3, and had a grist and sawmill, a blacksmith wheelwright shop, and store buildings, and 7 dwellings. A great deal if you want to buy it. And there's Brayshaw listed also. He had moved out of the area. He was in Savage. He went to Savage and opened up another woolen factory there. One of his sons worked in the one out in what we call Simpsonville. So he was in Savage. Now, the Tubics and Simpsons purchased that 215 acres. Not much happened with it. And by 1897, they decided to sell off the property. And that's the first time that 215 acres was actually divided up. And what became where the grist mill was 59-acre parcel. And the Wilsons purchased that. And she was listed as a postmaster. And then it was moved to Atherton, as I mentioned before. And that particular picture will pay of the mill. Actually, two of them were done by an artist who's coming down to go. Car went off the bridge into the mighty mill Patuxent. And the Iowa heard a crash and ran out. They extricated him from it, and he lived with them for a better part of a week or more. And this is a letter that he sent to them from New York. He was an artist from New York, and he said that he is uncertain as to when my car will be in shape, and I have been able to get to see you. And in the meantime, I thought about you people daily, and that a bandage seems like a boxing glove when it comes to writing. And he said, what has been my saving grace has been you too. And he actually sent her a box of chocolates. I'm sure Forrest Gump would appreciate that as well. And when he was there, he did those two drawings or oil paintings of the mill. And never did find out if it was the hand it was been bandaged or not. But when they decided, after we'd found a lot of information about the mill and the OEs and the Simpsons, they decided not to tear it down completely. Just we'll take it down to one story. And that's what it looked like on Cedar Lane before the new Cedar Lane came in, and where the Robinson Nature Center was going to be built. That's where they moved they didn't move the pulley or the bridge. That's one reason why I was kind of open for kids to get in there and spray paint, do some other interface material behaviors. And while we were doing the archaeology there, it was owned by Anne and her dog Kelly, Ann Robinson. We used to park and store my archaeology stuff in her garage. She and her husband had purchased it from the Solomon Eggs. It was 23 acres back in that time. And she was such a nice lady. She said, I think this would be a great place for a nature center. And her vision, she said she would donate property as long as they built the nature center. And I took some pictures of some of the local, the present and then the past of the county executives, as well as the head of Parks and Recs. I'm sorry, Gary Arthur passed away a few years ago. But that was a great day to see the nature center to be built there so that the history of that area could be somehow stored. We had a little cake, and it's still a great museum for kids of all ages. They even had some talked into putting some Native American artifacts in, and also artifacts that we had excavated from a mill. And they actually have a working mill. If you press the button there, you'll hear what it sounds like. And so anyway, the history hasn't been lost. We spent a lot of time there, and that's what I found out. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I looked up that tax, and it was one con that happened because then there was political upheaval, and they didn't want taxes, so they voted for Jefferson after that, and thus
Well,
they stopped the tax right away because there was too many people who complained about it. So 1798 was the first and last of those taxes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. Eva?
Let's say in 1750, and we had to move trees to mills. How would they move those?
Oh, well, they cut them down first. And they probably do some sawing to get it into movable pieces. We'll put it in wagons and take it down to the mill, to the sawmill. Yeah. For which get in a wagon, then it could get down there. But they would be cutting in first. Yeah. That they weren't going to be like the loggers you see driving Capital Highway present day. Yeah, not them. Any others? Well, you've been gracious. Thank you very much. I hope you have a good rest of the day.